Horses, dogs, and pigeons played crucial roles on medieval battlefields. Beasts carried messages, supplies, and warriors across dangerous terrain. Animals often decided the outcome of sieges and military campaigns. Their importance extended beyond war into daily survival of communities. Discover these hidden roles with medieval history. Dawn broke across frost-laden fields, the mist curling in thin, restless coils around the hooves of armored warhorses and the trembling bodies of pack animals burdened with grain, weaponry, and fragile hope. The air was sharp, biting at lips and nostrils, carrying the mingled scents of leather, sweat, hay, and the acrid smoke drifting from distant fires. Every inhalation tasted of anticipation, of something vast yet unseen stirring on the horizon. A battle yet to be claimed or lost. Ravens wheeled overhead, their black wings slicing the pale sky, their cries echoing over moats and ramparts like the voices of unseen witnesses. Some whispered of doom, others of opportunity, and all bore witness to the slow, measured march of men and beasts. The rhythm of hooves striking frozen earth was a drumbeat of inevitability, carrying knights clad in steel, squires clutching reins white with frost, and the heavy-laden oxen that bent beneath their loads. Dogs padded silently along shaded paths, noses to the ground, ears attuned to the rustle of distant leaves, the subtle clink of enemy armor, or the faintest tremor in the earth beneath the march. The symphony of preparation rose and fell with life itself. Armor clinked, leather straps groaned, and the low neighs of anxious horses punctuated the crisp morning. Air carts creaked under weight, their wooden wheels biting into frozen mud, a sound that became a subtle heartbeat, steady and unavoidable in the stables. The mingling scents of manure, damp straw, and the faint copper tang of blood told of lives sustained and injured alike. Skilled hands calloused, bleeding, and unyielding tended to horses with rudimentary care, poultices, bandages, and whispered prayers. Blending superstition with necessity, symbols were painted on harnesses, banners, and shields, emblems of allegiance, charms of protection, and silent warnings to friend and foe alike. Each mark carried weight, an invocation as much as identification, a belief that courage alone could not shield men from the tide of war, and that superstition, ritual, and remembrance might bend fate in their favor. The animals, too, bore these symbols, painted upon flanks or tied to harnesses, reminders that their loyalty was a bond as sacred as blood, and that every life, human or beast, mattered in the careful calculus of survival. Frosted fields reflected the early light, making shadows of riders and beasts stretch long and distorted across the frozen earth. Each silhouette was a promise of valor, a mark of vulnerability, a testament to endurance. The air vibrated with tension. The world seemed to hold its breath as knights adjusted gauntlets. Reins slipped through calloused hands, and the heavy-laden carts creaked forward. Inch by careful inch, every glance exchanged between a rider and his mount was a silent contract, a mutual understanding that the battle ahead demanded unity, courage, and an instinct honed by countless dawns of preparation. The distant cry of birds, the flutter of banners in a stiffening breeze, and the subtle groan of timber beneath the march melded into a quiet rhythm. It was a rhythm that dictated patience, precision, and awareness, teaching that the smallest misstep in unfastened strap A misread command, a hesitant animal could unravel strategy, turn hope to despair, and tip the balance in a world governed by both steel and circumstance. Every footfall on the frozen earth, every shiver in the hay-strewn stables, carried the weight of anticipation. The fragile edge between survival and annihilation within the ranks. Whispers passed between men, half-spoken prayers, reminders of home. And counsel offered to steady nerves, fraying in the cold. Some murmured invocations to saints, others to ancestors long dead, and still others sought luck in the flickering firelight of nearby torches. Their voices were soft, fragile, yet persistent against the vast silence of frost and sky, weaving courage into the air as surely as the sun weaved light across the distant ramparts. Horses snorted clouds of vapor into the cold, ears flicking, muscles coiled, instinct alive. Their anxiety mirrored that of their riders, each creature attuned to threat and command alike. Pack animals stumbled, then righted themselves under careful hands. Each step a lesson in endurance, and trust. Dogs flitted from cart to cart, vigilant and silent, their instincts guiding the march, tracking scents that promised danger or opportunity. The field itself became a live, breathing organism, as aware of the frost, the wind, and the coming clash as those who guided it across its frozen expanse. The sun rose higher, faint shafts of light piercing the mist, catching on steel and dew, illuminating banners whose colors seemed sharper against the pale gray of frost. Shadows lengthened, merged, and separated, carrying the weight of men and beasts, each shape a story, a fear, a hope, a reminder that life was fragile, courage fleeting, and survival often dictated by the unlikeliest of bonds in this frozen theater. Every sound, the scrape of iron on leather, the clatter of hooves on cobblestone, the whisper of wind through banners spoke of preparation, anticipation, and the quiet tension that preceded confrontation. The day itself seemed to pause, holding in the breath of the world, waiting for the inevitable clash where courage, cunning, and chance would collide. Each figure, human and animal alike, carried the burden of generations, the memory of battles won and lost, of loyalty betrayed and preserved, and of the fragile hope that even amidst the cruelty of medieval warfare, life could endure and honor could persist. As the frost sparkled in the growing light, and mist lifted slowly from frozen fields, the march continued. Hooves struck earth, wheels turned, banners fluttered, and the subtle, unrelenting rhythm of preparation carried all forward. In every glance exchanged, in every hand clasped on rein or rope, and in every breath drawn against the chill, there lay the quiet certainty that survival demanded more than steel it required. Heart, instinct, and the unshakable bond between man, beast, and the world that would decide their fates. And as the sun climbed fully into the pale sky, shadows of knights and animals stretched forward, reaching toward an uncertain horizon. The field shimmered with frost and breath, hope and fear, and the faint pulse of courage that would carry them into battle. The march was more than movement. It was ritual, resolve, and the first step in a day that could claim life, glory, or both, leaving behind only the echo of hooves, the whisper of wind, and the quiet heartbeat of a world poised on the edge of war. A mist-shrouded morning revealed the silhouettes of mounted knights and their steeds, breath steaming in the frigid air. hooves crunching against frost-coated earth. With the relentless rhythm of impending destiny, the pale light of dawn filtered weakly through curling fog, casting long, trembling shadows that stretched across the frozen ground, blending men, animals, and the silent landscape into a single, tenuous silhouette. Each exhalation of steam, each movement of a gloved hand, carried the weight of vigilance, a fragile thread connecting life to the uncertain fortunes of the Datha scent of leather. Wet fur and smoke from distant fires drifted across the encampment, mingling with the tang of iron and the faint, bitter aroma of frost-bitten earth oxen strained against carts laden with grain, weapons, and rudimentary siege equipment, muscles trembling under the weight. Every step, a testament to endurance, dogs padded along the edges of the encampment, ears pricked, eyes glinting with instinctive intelligence, a subtle warning system attuned to every flicker of movement, every whisper of wind, every threat unseen by human eyes. Their low growls punctuated the crisp air, adding tension to the layered symphony of clanking metal. Stamping hooves and murmured orders ravens wheeled overhead, black as smoke against a pale sky. Their cries slicing through the cold air like omens, they hovered above walls and fields. Silent witnesses to preparation, observers of loyalty and fear alike, men glanced upward, noting the birds' flight with the practiced superstition of soldiers who trusted portents as much as their armor, believing that the signs of nature could whisper truths the eye alone might miss. Each shadowed glance, each pause in movement, became an act of calculation and reverence, a ritual as old as the march of men to war with in the stables. The air was thick with the mingling scents of straw, manure, and iron, the pungent tang of horseshoes striking frozen floors. Steeds shifted nervously, ears flicking, nostrils flaring, muscles coiling beneath glinting steel and layered harnesses. Hands, calloused and steady, moved with practiced care, adjusting straps, inspecting saddles, and whispering soft words of reassurance. Blending human ritual with instinctive guidance, each gesture bore meaning, a pat along the neck, a tightened girth, a subtle tilt of the head, all weaving a delicate thread of trust between rider and animal. Symbols, adorned saddles, banners, and harnesses, painted or stitched with intent. Some marked allegiance, others offered protection through superstition, and still more served as silent prayers whispered into the cold wind. These emblems, often overlooked by the untrained eye, carried weight in the hearts of those who trusted them, a constant reminder that courage alone would not carry them through frost, mud, and the thunder of battle. Every banner lifted against the wind cast long shadows, stretching across frozen earth, weaving the stories of men and beasts into a tapestry of preparation, hope, and dread. The synchronized movement of the camp was a dance of survival. Knights adjusted gauntlets. Reins slipped through fingers white with cold, and the heavy-laden carts creaked under the strain of wheels biting into frost. Each step forward demanded precision and awareness, for the frozen earth was unforgiving, and the smallest miscalculation could unravel plans nurtured through months of preparation. The march was not merely of body, but of instinct, courage, and the unspoken language shared between horse and rider, ox and driver. Dog and soldier voices rose and fell like the wind through the encampment's soft prayers, whispered orders, the exchange of counsel and reassurance. Some murmured devotions to saints, others recalled ancestors long dead, and still more sought luck in the ritual markings of banners or harnesses. Their words were fragile, yet essential, weaving courage into the cold air, reinforcing bonds of trust in a world poised on the knife edge between life and death. Every glance, every gesture carried the unspoken weight of survival, threading human hope through the instincts and strength of the animals at their side. Sun, pale and distant, climbed slowly above the horizon, catching the frost on steel and the glint of harness buckles. Shadows lengthened and merged with the mist, creating shapes that seemed to move of their own accord, blending reality and perception, heightening tension, and stirring anticipation. The field itself felt alive, a silent, watchful presence, sensing movement, listening to the rhythm of hooves and wheels, the stirrings of men, and the unyielding vigilance of the creatures who shared this march. Horses pawed at frozen ground, snorted clouds of vapor, and trembled beneath armored riders. Their instincts mirrored the anxiety and anticipation of men, a coiled tension ready to unravel at the first sign of danger. Pack animals shifted under the weight of carts, stumbling and regaining balance with guidance from patient hands, each careful step a testament to endurance and trust. Dogs flitted silently from group to group, alert to any scent or sound that might betray the presence of the unseen, guarding the delicate harmony that allowed life to persist in a world governed by steel and chance's. Banners lifted in the stiff wind, tossing in long arcs above frozen fields. The fragile harmony between human and animal became unmistakable strategy. Survival and the hope of life itself rested upon the instinctive understanding between men and beasts. Every step taken, every strap tightened, every glance shared was part of a careful choreography honed over years of training, superstition, and the relentless necessity of preparation. The march was not mere movement. It was ritual, promise, and prayer, a living testament to the courage and cunning that shaped the fortunes of kingdoms. Ravens circled higher, their cries echoing across the frozen expanse, carrying tales of vigilance, warning, and witness. The frozen mist shimmered as the sun climbed, revealing fleeting glimpses of steel, leather, and fur. Every figure, every creature moved with deliberate purpose, a quiet determination etched in the tension of shoulders, the set of jaws, the poised muscles of hooves and paws. The frozen morning held its breath, poised on the edge of chaos, knowing that the harmony of preparation could tip at the slightest misstep, and that courage and loyalty would be tested by fire, frost, and steel, alikened as the first rays of sunlight broke fully over the mist. The silhouettes of riders, oxen, and dogs stretched long across the frost-glazed earth, moving forward with silent, unwavering intent. The field shimmered with anticipation, courage, and fear, a fragile dance of life and death, the harmony of human and animal, of instinct and strategy, of hope and preparation, carried them forward, poised on the cusp of battle, leaving only the rhythm of hooves, the whisper of wind, and the quiet heartbeat of a world suspended between dawn and the storm to come. Frost clung stubbornly to stone walls and the straw-strewn floors of stables, each icy crystal catching the first pale light of dawn and reflecting it like shards of forgotten glass through the mist. The silhouettes of horses, oxen, and dogs emerged motionless at first, then shifting with deliberate anticipation, their breath steaming in the frigid air. The world seemed to hold its breath alongside them. The frozen stillness, only broken by the distant call of ravens circling above, their cries slicing through the cold like warning bells, harbingers of vigilance and portent. The air was thick with the mingled scent of hay, leather, and sweat, carrying with it the faint tang of smoke from nearby fires where blacksmiths prepared weapons and armor for the days. Training somewhere beyond, the coppery hint of blood lingered on the wind, marking the fields where young knights grappled with steel and balance, learning the merciless lessons of riding, combat. The creak of carts, the low growl of a dog carried weight, each a note in a symphony orchestrated by tension, anticipation, and the fragile dance between life and danger. Horses shifted nervously, pawing at the frozen earth, ears flicking toward the slightest whisper of movement, their muscles coiled beneath thick hides and steel harnesses, as if understanding instinctively the demands that awaited them. Oxen strained beneath carts piled high with grain, weapons, and fragile supplies, their slow, deliberate steps echoing patience, endurance, and the harsh rhythm of work that spanned generations. Dogs padded silently along the edges of camp, noses to the ground, eyes glinting in muted light, mediators between men and the unseen dangers of the day. They moved, not with fear, but with a calm readiness, an instinctive bridge connecting human ambition to the natural vigilance of their companions within the stables. The smell of damp straw and iron-studded harnesses was suffused with labor, devotion, and quiet reverence. Leather straps creaked under the careful hands of grooms and riders. Bells tinkled softly from collars, and every saddle, bridle, and cart bore subtle symbols etched or painted into the surface, emblems of protection, talismans of luck, and silent prayers whispered into the cold dawn. These signs, often overlooked by the untrained eye, carried the weight of superstition and necessity, merging ritual with strategy, belief with survival. A single misstep could undo months of preparation, and men and beasts alike relied on these small acts of devotion to guide them through uncertainty. Rhythm of movement unfolded across frozen fields like a precise choreography. Hooves struck the frost with steady percussion, wheels of carts groaning under their burdens, and dogs slipped between groups of riders and drivers, alert to any disturbance, any scent, any signal that might demand immediate action. Banners fluttered stiffly in the chill wind, stretching long shadows across the glistening ground, casting ephemeral shapes that seemed to merge human and animal into a single, coordinated entity. Every gesture, the tug of a rein, a pat along a neck, a guiding nudge, was an unspoken agreement between creature and master, trust circling and observing, their black forms stark against the soft, rising sun. They were witnesses to preparation, omens that men noted with quiet acknowledgement, signs woven into the tapestry of superstition that accompanied every act of readiness. Soldiers murmured prayers, whispered blessings, or exchanged counsel in hushed tones, blending human ritual with instinctive guidance. The animals responded in kind, ears pricked, muscles tensed, eyes keen, their instincts sharpened by countless dawns like this one, where life and strategy were inseparable. The sun climbed slowly, casting faint warmth over frost-coated earth, illuminating the sheen of steel, the glint of harness buckles, and the glistening of ice along wooden beams, shadows of hooves, paws, and banners stretched long and trembled across the fields, merging and separating in a subtle dance of light and anticipation. The frozen landscape seemed alive, aware of the careful movements of men and beasts alike, of the fragile balance that determined whether courage and preparation would suffice in the trials to come. In the stables, the creatures shifted again, adjusting to the rhythm of human hands. Horses breathed slowly, nostrils flaring, muscles coiling, prepared to obey the commands that would soon carry them across fields of training and, eventually, into the chaos of war. Oxen exhaled clouds of mist, feet slipping cautiously over frozen ground, each step a testament to endurance and patience. Dogs moved fluidly, silent sentinels, watching every corner, every shadow, every movement that might threaten the fragile order. Symbols on banners and harnesses caught the early light, their colors muted but present, whispering allegiance, protection, and the hopes of those who carried them. The interplay of superstition and necessity was ever present, a quiet thread woven into every preparation, every glance, every footfall. Each man and beast relied on these small rituals, these silent acknowledgments of risk and faith, to carry them through what the day might demand. As the sun rose higher, casting long, trembling shadows, the harmony of preparation became evident. Riders adjusted their grips on reins, grooms shifted weight on carts, dogs paused mid-step to listen and assess, and oxen plodded faithfully along paths worn by countless marches. Before the rhythm of this frozen dawn, the subtle orchestration of movement and instinct formed the backbone of survival, a quiet testament to the interdependence of man and beast in a world ruled by steel, frost, and the uncertainty of each passing moment. And so, as the first full light of day revealed the frozen expanse in its stark clarity, men and animals moved as one, bound by trust, necessity, and the unspoken knowledge that their combined strength, courage, and loyalty were the slender bridge between survival and disaster. The dawn of preparation stretched forward, carrying with it the quiet heartbeat of a medieval world poised on the edge of action, the promise of endurance, and the unyielding partnership between human and beast, ready to face the challenges that lay just beyond the frozen horizon. Morning broke over a frost-laden encampment, pale light fracturing through the lingering mist, touching the frozen earth with a cold, silver-hand. Horses huddled together, coats bristling, breath steaming in the chill, their eyes wide, dark pools, reflecting the anticipation of the day. Oxen groaned beneath the weight of heavy carts, hooves sinking slightly into frost-hardened ground, each movement measured, each step a testament to patience and endurance honed over countless dawns. Dogs moved like shadows along stone walls, noses to the ground, ears pricked, every muscle taut with silent intelligence, guardians of secrets and sentinels of survival. The air was dense with the mingling scent of leather, hay, iron, and animal sweat, each note a marker of labor, preparation, and quiet tension. Smoke from distant fires wove through the chill, carrying the coppery tang of blood from training fields where young knights wrestled with steel, testing strength, balance, and resolve. Ravens wheeled high above ramparts, black against pale sky, their harsh cries slicing through the morning air like knives, silent witnesses to the delicate choreography below every movement of man and beast seemed to answer the invisible call of instinct and duty, a pact forged in the frost and blood of a harsh, unforgiving world. Knights adjusted bridles, tightened straps, and whispered to anxious steeds, murmuring words of reassurance or authority. Their voices low but steady, carrying over the rhythmic clatter of hooves on frozen earth, every touch of hand to leather, every firm grip on rein was a negotiation of trust, an unspoken understanding between human and animal. Horses stamped and shifted, nostrils flaring, muscles coiled beneath armored hides, ready to obey commands that might carry them into chaos, danger, or death. Oxen, slow and deliberate, bore the burdens of grain, weapons, and wounded men with an unyielding patience, their steady cadence a counterpoint to the nervous energy rippling through the mounted ranks. Dogs weaved among the animals, and humans, lithe and silent, instinct guiding them as much as training. Their paws slipped on frost-coated stones and frozen earth, bells jingling softly on collars, each sound carrying protective weight, a ritualistic charm embedded in the practical necessities of survival. These guardians of camp and courier of messages were more than companions, they were extensions of the army's senses, bridging gaps between man, beast, and the hidden dangers lurking just beyond watchful eyes. The stables reeked of damp straw and the pungent tang of iron-studded harnesses, a scent woven tightly into the fabric of preparation. Leather creaked under hands skilled with repetition, collars jangled gently, and symbols etched into saddles, harnesses, and carts whispered silent prayers of protection. Each emblem, each mark, blended superstition with practicality, an acknowledgement that survival in this frozen dawn depended as much on belief as on strength. The clatter of armor, the hiss of frost-crusted hay, the groan of laboring oxen all joined in a layered symphony, a complex rhythm that only those who lived intimately with horses, dogs, and the pulse of medieval warfare could understand. Shadows stretched long across the frost, shapes of hooves, paws, and banners intertwining, forming fleeting patterns on frozen ground. The rising sun caught the edges of metal, reflecting glints off armor and harnesses, illuminating the careful choreography of readiness. Knights moved with intent, balancing authority with gentleness, guiding beasts who responded not with thought but with instinct, honed over countless campaigns. Oxen shifted their heavy weight with a patience learned from generations, while dogs paused mid-step, ears twitching, observing subtle movements and sense that human eyes could not detect. The delicate balance between human and animal was at once practical and sacred. Horses carried knights into the unknown, oxen bore the burdens that sustained armies, and dogs served as watchful mediators of threat and safety. Together, they formed a fragile ecosystem of survival, each reliant on the others for life, for strategy, and for the execution of plans that would determine the fates of men, lands, and the course of battle itself. This interplay was a testament to endurance, courage, and the quiet, uncelebrated sacrifices that underpinned every act of medieval life and warfare. Symbols painted on harnesses and banners shimmered faintly in the frost, muted by early light, but potent in meaning, tokens of allegiance, protection, and hope. They were small talismans, woven into the everyday labor of preparation, bridging superstition and necessity, guiding hands and hearts alike. Knights whispered to their mounts, offering reassurance, commands or prayers, and the horses responded with instinctive obedience. Oxen labored in quiet dignity, and dogs remained vigilant. The trio bound in silent understanding, each aware of the roles they must fulfill, the dangers to face, and the fragile chain of trust that connected all life in the encampment. As the sun rose higher, it casts a gentle silver glow across frozen fields. Shadows trembled and stretched, merging and separating, tracing the movement of hooves, paws, and men. The encampment, alive with sound and scent, became a living testament to preparation, discipline, and the harmony between species. The world held a breathless stillness, fragile yet full of latent energy, waiting for the day's trials to begin, for the battlefield to awaken, and for survival to be tested once more. And so, as morning light fractured further through the lingering mist, the silent pact between man and beast revealed itself, fully a covenant of endurance, loyalty, and instinct. Every step of horse, ox, and dog carried weight beyond the physical, sustaining not only the bodies of men, but the fragile hope that courage, preparation, and trust could navigate a world poised on the edge of chaos. The frozen dawn, with its smells, sounds, and shadows, marked not an end, but the beginning of a day where survival, strategy, and the quiet strength of shared purpose would be the truest armor any knight or soldier could bear. Mist lingered along the riverbanks, curling like smoke around frozen reeds and frost-encrusted stones. Its damp fingers reached into stables and yards, carrying the scent of wet earth, hay, and sweat. Horses stamped anxiously, clouds of steam rising with each breath, their muscles coiled beneath gleaming hides, ears flicking toward distant sounds that spoke of unseen dangers. Knights crouched low over saddles, tightening girths, whispering words meant more for reassurance than command. In these murmured tones, a fragile trust was forged, a covenant of obedience and faith that could determine life or death. Once steel met steel. Oxen groaned beneath the weight of loaded carts, their hooves scraping against frost-crusted earth grain. Weapons and wounded men shifted slightly with each step, creating a rhythm as deliberate and heavy as a heartbeat. Every heave of muscle was a quiet testament to endurance, patience, and the hidden strength that made armies move long before battle was joined in their slow, deliberate labor. The oxen became more than beasts of burden. They were steady anchors in a world poised on chaos, guardians of supplies that could tip the fragile balance between survival and ruin. Dogs moved silently along narrow paths, eyes bright, noses low to the ground, their paws left fleeting imprints in frost, ears flicking at the faintest disturbance in wind or foliage. Trained to hunt, guard, or carry messages, they threaded between human and animal alike. Invisible conduits of intelligence and instinct. Every bark, growl, or subtle shift of posture carried meaning. Each movement, each pause, bridged the chasm between the calculated strategies of men and the raw, vital senses of the creatures they relied upon above. Ravens wheeled against a pale sky, their cries echoing off stone walls and riverbanks, black shapes against the silver dawn. They observed the intricate interplay below, silent witnesses to centuries of survival strategies and the delicate alliances between species in their shadowed flight. They became symbols of forewarning and mortality, reminders that the world beyond the encampment was neither forgiving nor indifferent. Their harsh cries mingled with the clatter of leather and iron. A somber accompaniment to the rhythm of preparation leather creaked as bridles tightened and harnesses were adjusted. Bells tinkled softly from collars, a protective melody that resonated faintly against the frost, while etched symbols on saddles, harnesses, and carts whispered both superstition and hope. These marks were talismans, stitched and carved with care, gestures that blended ritual and practicality in a world where death could arrive silently on the tip of a sword, where a misstep could unravel months of preparation. Every precaution mattered, both spiritual and physical. The chorus of the encampment was layered and complex. The rhythmic stamping of horses melded with the low groans of oxen and the occasional bark or growl of alert dogs. Frost creaked beneath hooves and wheels, mingling with the distant ripple of river water and the faint hiss of smoke from morning fires together. These sounds wove a tapestry of life in motion, a soundscape that spoke of duty, endurance, and the invisible threads of trust binding man and beast alike. Shadows stretched across frost-bound fields as banners lifted in the gentle dawn wind, long and wavering, their colors muted in pale light. Riders adjusted their positions, glancing at animals beneath them, feeling the subtle tremors of muscle and sinew that signaled readiness or fear. Oxen shifted, patiently, persistently, carrying burdens that would sustain men for days. Dogs paused, sensing the unseen, a subtle communication passing between human and animal in gestures as old as warfare itself. Every heartbeat of life, every breath of steam, every flick of ear or tail was a note in a larger symphony of survival, layered and intricate, conducted without a single command. The frozen earth beneath them seemed alive with movement, a canvas for the delicate choreography unfolding. Men, horses, oxen, and dogs operated in a shared rhythm, an unspoken agreement that each life was essential to the others. Knights whispered to steeds, oxen strained against harnesses, dogs slinked along walls, each aware, instinctively, that survival depended not only on courage or strategy, but on this quiet, vital harmony. In these moments, before the sun fully broke, before orders were shouted and swords clashed, the camp existed in a fragile stillness, poised between anticipation and action. Life and death. Morning light began to pierce the mist, pale and cold, revealing textures previously hidden. Frost on harnesses, coiled ropes glinting, wet cobblestones, reflecting shadowed figures. The interplay of light and shadow highlighted the silent pact between species. Horses exhaled clouds of warm breath into frigid air. Oxen pressed forward, unwavering, and dogs moved like shadows, almost unseen. Their instincts, as vital as the strategies etched into banners above symbols of protection, caught glints of sunlight, faint, almost imperceptible, yet potent, a bridge between superstition, hope, and survival. This choreography of life and labor was a quiet testament to trust, endurance, and interdependence. Humans could plan, command, and strategize, but they relied upon the strength, instincts, and loyalty of creatures who shared their burdens. Every stamped hoof, strained back, and pricked ear reinforced the truth that medieval survival was a tapestry woven from more than steel and courage. It required the combined force of all who moved within it. Seen and unseen alike, the mist thinned and the river sparkled in tentative sunlight. The encampment's symphony settled into a steady rhythm, a delicate balance between anticipation and readiness. The frozen earth reflected the subtle dance of banners, animals, and men, a world alive with silent agreements and unspoken understandings, trust, instinct, and loyalty intertwined across species, shaping the strategies of the day and the lives that depended upon them. And so, as dawn fully claimed the riverbanks, the silent alliance of man and beast endured, a fragile yet unbreakable cord binding the fates of warriors and animals together in this quiet interlude before the tumult of battle, before the clash of steel and the cries of war. The camp remained a living testament to the power of instinct, preparation, and trust. The frost, the mist, and the layered chorus of life whispered a question to the unfolding day. Could this fragile harmony withstand the storm to come? And would the bonds forged in silence endure the brutal reality of medieval warfare? A gray dawn clung to frost-covered fields, curling along riverbanks where smoke from distant hearths mingled with the brine of frozen waters. The chill clung to every surface metal. Leather furned, it seeped into bones. Horses shivered beneath. Armored riders, nostrils flaring as clouds of breath misted in the cold air. Saddles creaked and reins tightened under calloused hands. Each subtle adjustment, a delicate negotiation of control and trust. The animals, proud and nervous alike, shifted their weight in anticipation. Muscles coiled for the unknown day. A-head oxen groaned beneath the weight of loaded carts. Each step deliberate, each heave a testament to patience and endurance. Barrels of grain, stacks of firewood, weaponry, and the injured pressed against worn wood and iron, shifting slightly as wheels groaned on frostbound tracks. In their slow, methodical labor, the oxen became silent guardians of survival. Their strength, a hinge upon which the fragile fortunes of men and villages rested. Every strained breath, every pawing of hoof on frozen earth echoed with the quiet resilience that kept armies fed, villages safe, and lives tethered to hope. Dogs moved along the edges of encampments, paws silent against frosted earth, their noses traced invisible threads in the ground, alert to movement, scent, and the faintest tremor of approaching danger. Eyes glimmered with intelligence and instinct, attuned to signals invisible to human eyes. Some ran ahead, carrying messages between commanders. Others lingered, guarding the perimeter with a low growl or a careful stance. In this interplay of species, the lines between survival and catastrophe were drawn not in steel alone, but in the shared vigilance and unspoken communication of man and beasts above. Ravens wheeled in black arcs against the pale sky, their cries slicing through the cold silence. To the superstitious, their flight carried omens, messengers of fate, shadows of death, and witnesses to the alliances between creatures and humans. Their presence was a reminder of the unseen eyes, observing every decision, every shift of weight, every creak of leather and groan of oxen in their shadowed flights. The delicate balance of preparation, instinct, and human cunning hung poised, waiting for the day to reveal which threads would hold and which would snap under pressure. The scents of the camp mingled into a complex perfume of labor and anticipation. Hay, sweat, leather, and iron formed the backbone of the morning air, interlaced with smoke from distant fires and the faint tang of blood from training exercises. Bells hung from collars, jingled softly with each movement, their tinkling a subtle rhythm that mirrored the cadence of hooves, paws, and wheels-etched symbols on harnesses and carts whispered protection, luck, and superstition, gestures woven into the material world that spoke of hope and caution alike. Each mark was both talisman and ritual, blending practical necessity with a belief in forces beyond human comprehension. The layered symphony of sound unfolded slowly. The stamping of horses' hooves against frostbound earth formed a steady pulse, answered by the deep, sonorous groans of oxen dogs padded along edges, occasionally breaking into a soft bark or warning growl. Leather creaked with adjustment. Iron rang against frost-hardened ground, and the hiss of smoke from small fires threaded through the still air. Every sound, subtle or pronounced, was part of a larger cadence, a rhythm uniting humans and animals into a single living organism, moving in harmony through a world poised on the brink of survival. And war shadows stretched long across the frozen earth as the sun rose, pale light fracturing through mist, and smoke banners lifted in the weak wind, stretching long across the ground, their colors muted, yet potent with symbolism and allegiance. Riders shifted in saddles, glancing down at animals beneath them, gauging fear and readiness, responding with quiet words and gentle tugs of reins. Oxen strained forward, steady and reliable, while dogs threaded through legs and carts with silent intent. Each movement reinforced the fragile but essential trust that held the camp together in this quiet interplay. Discipline, instinct, and courage intertwined, forming a lattice that could endure the cruelties of medieval life. The frost sparkled on harnesses and ropes, glittering with droplets that reflected the faint morning light. Steam rose from horses' flanks and dogs' panting mouths, ghostly wisps that mingled with smoke from fires burning weakly in hearths. Every strap, every knot, every tug of leather carried meaning, a part of a delicate choreography of survival. Knights adjusted saddles and bridles, whispering encouragement to animals whose loyalty was as vital as any soldier's sword. Oxen pressed forward without complaint, carts groaning with the weight of hope and necessity. The quiet ritual of preparation became an unspoken covenant that the courage of humans and the endurance of animals were bound together, inseparable in the struggle to persist. In this mist-laden dawn, the camp existed in suspended anticipation. Life moved in layers, visible and invisible, mechanical and instinctual, human and animal. Every beat of hoof, every shifting paw, every metallic clink and whispered symbol threaded together into a living testament of resilience. Here, in the fragile harmony of dawn, men and beasts shared more than work. They shared fate, each dependent on the other to face the unknown day, to endure its harsh lessons, to survive as mist began to thin and pale sunlight fractured over the river. The rhythm persisted. Hooves and paws, wheels and creaking leather, all wove a tapestry of life poised on survival, courage, and trust. Ravens wheeled overhead, their cries cutting through the air like dark punctuation in a story written across the frost-bound fields. Bells tinkled, leather strained, and breath steamed in the cold, joining the chorus of a world alive with necessity, preparation, and the quiet bonds of loyalty that would carry them through the coming hours. And so, in the gray light of dawn, a fragile balance held humans and animals, knights and oxen, dogs and steeds, moved in shared rhythm, bound by trust, instinct, and endurance. Each breath, each step, Each whispered gesture was a note in the silent symphony of survival, a prelude to the day's trials, a testament to the endurance of life in a world governed by danger, superstition, and the relentless pursuit of survival. The frost, the mist, and the layered chorus of existence asked only one question as the day unfolded. Could this fragile alliance withstand the harshness that lay ahead? And would the bonds of trust and courage endure the merciless reality of the medieval battlefield? Steam rose in curling wisps from frost-laden stables, merging with the gray dawn that crept across the valley. The air was thick with the pungent mixture of hay, sweat, and worn leather, mingling faintly with smoke drifting from hearths in distant villages. Horses shifted nervously, hooves crunching against frost-stiffened earth, ears flicking at every whisper of wind, nostrils flaring as if to taste the uncertainty in the air. Knights leaned close, adjusting girths and murmuring words only the animals could understand. Their voices a fragile bridge of trust in a world poised on the edge of chaos. Oxen strained under the weight of heavy carts, groaning softly with each step as they bore grain, weaponry, and the fragile bodies of wounded men. Their labor was steady, patient, an uncelebrated testament to fortitude. Each step echoed across frozen fields like a measured drum, marking the slow, deliberate rhythm upon which survival depended. The frost clung to hooves, iron fittings, and wooden wheels, and every groan, every shifting weight was a small victory in a life governed by endurance, necessity, and the quiet resilience of creatures bound to human fate. Dogs padded through shadowed paths, silent as whispers, noses to the ground, eyes scanning for the unseen. Their loyalty was instinctive, unwavering. They carried messages between commanders, guarded the edges of encampments, and hunted the slightest hint of danger before it could reach human ears. Bells tinkled softly at their collars, faint as the pulse of life itself, while etched symbols on harnesses and saddles lines of protection. Prayers for safety reminded all who moved among them that superstition and faith were inseparable from survival. Every gesture of care, every gentle tug of a rein was a pact, a promise that the harmony of man and animal could tip the scales. Between life and death, ravens circled above the battlements and ramparts, their cries slicing through the cold morning like dark punctuation in the rhythm of the camp. To some, they were omens. To others, silent observers of the delicate interplay below their black wings, traced arcs against pale skies, shadows falling over horses' flanks, oxen's backs, and the careful movements of men. They watched the world unfold with an indifferent patience, witnesses to the fragile bonds that tethered life, courage, and survival together. The soundscape was a layered symphony. Leather straps creaked as horses shifted in restless anticipation. Iron fittings rang softly under weight, and motion bells chimed in a delicate cadence with each pawstep or hoofbeat, while the low groans of oxen created a deep undertone, grounding the fragile rhythm of dawn. Steam rose from horses' flanks, and dogs' panting breaths, weaving a ghostly veil through which men and animals moved, united in purpose, in vigilance, and in the silent choreography that ensured survival in a harsh and unforgiving medieval world. Within the stables, the smell of damp straw mixed with iron and animal sweat punctuated by the faint metallic temps of blood from earlier training exercises. Knights moved methodically, brushing sweat and frost from their horses, whispering guidance into sensitive ears. Oxen were tended with hands roughened by labor, ropes tightened, wheels greased, and carts balanced carefully under frost-laden burdens. Every task carried weight. Every motion mattered. It was here, in this quiet diligence, that the invisible threads connecting humans and animals were most evident. Trust and instinct were as essential as armor and steel, binding camp to field, life to survival symbols etched into leather harnesses, and wooden carts carried stories of lineage, loyalty, and prayer. Some were simple crosses, others intricate knots and glyphs that promised protection or cursed enemies unseen. They were both superstition and strategy, an acknowledgement that in a world governed by chance and violence, unseen forces could tip fortunes. Knights touched these marks with reverence, their fingers tracing the patterns as if their faith alone could steady the trembling of hooves or calm the fear in eyes that were both human and animal. As the sun rose, its pale rays fractured through mist, casting long shadows across frozen fields. Horses shifted in time with their riders, the rhythm of hooves falling in concert with oxen and the occasional bark of vigilant dogs. Banners lifted in the wind, stretching like fingers of color over the frost-bound earth. The shadows intertwined, a tapestry of life and labor, illustrating a delicate harmony that was invisible to those who saw only the surface of war. This dance of survival was fragile and essential. A single misstep could undo hours of preparation. A moment of mistrust could unravel the fragile alliance holding camp, convoy, and kingdom together. The mist thinned slowly, revealing the precise choreography beneath horses' muscles, tensed and relaxed under practiced hands. Oxen trudged with unwavering patience, and dogs navigated with instinctive intelligence, the rhythmic cadence, hoof against frozen ground, paw against straw-strewn path, wheel creaking under burden, was more than sound. It was life itself. Every movement held intent. Every breath was measured against the cold, and every gesture reaffirmed the unspoken pact between humans and creatures who shared their peril, their labor, and their fate in this moment. Dawn was more than light breaking over frost. It was a silent witness to trust forged under pressure, to courage dependent on patience, to survival reliant on the intertwined strength of humans and animals alike. Each step, each breath, each low murmur of leather or jingle of a bell was a thread in the fabric of medieval existence. Fragile yet resilient, delicate yet unyielding, the camp held its breath with the rising sun, poised between hope and hazard. Each creature, man or beast, bearing its weight in the shared rhythm of endurance's shadows, receded, and the sun climbed higher. The harmony endured. Horses and riders, oxen and carts, dogs and messengers moved as one living organism, each part essential to the survival of the whole. Ravens wheeled above, silent chroniclers of this symbiosis, their black silhouettes cutting across the pale sky. The morning chorus of creaking leather, stamping hooves, groaning oxen, and vigilant paws persisted, a testament to courage, instinct, and quiet loyalty in this fragile alignment. The medieval world held together, bound not only by strategy and steel, but by the enduring alliance of man and beast. Each step a declaration of resilience against the merciless demands of a world defined by frost, danger, and relentless uncertainty. And so, the dawn unfolded, revealing the rhythm of trust and toil, the silent choreography of survival that would carry men and animals alike through the trials of day, the unknown perils that lay beyond the frost, and the unspoken truth that in the brutal reality of medieval life, courage alone was never enough. Endured because of loyalty, instinct, and the quiet, steadfast partnership of all who shared the burden of survival.